January 6, 2021. The entire world saw a different America, one they've never seen before. There were different emotions: sad, frustration, shocking. But wherever you fell in that spectrum of emotions, those events did happen. There were riots at Washington, D.C. We're not going to get into why it happened and all of that. Let's also put aside our personal admiration for either Trump or for Biden. Let's look at the events for what it is and for what it's taught us, okay? Regardless of where you are in this world, anything that happened in the United States does have an impact. So we've seen riots, we've all seen the aftermath. What does that mean for us? What lessons can we learn from those? I thought about it. Personally, all those events was disturbing. But upon reflection, 3 things stood out to me. And so I'd like to share with you 3 lessons that I think those events and the rioting that happened in DC has taught all of us. Again, this video is not about showing admiration for any political party, candidate, or beliefs in those areas. Let's just look at the things that happened and what that means for us as we move forward. So the first lesson from all of this is that we cannot live without each other. Liberal, conservative, Democrat, Republican, black, white, brown, Muslim, Christian. We all need each other. After the rioting, guess what happened? Everybody went back home. Everybody went to their neighborhoods, to their communities. It doesn't change where they are going to church, where they are taking their dogs for attention, their hospitals, they are buying food. We have different people, and we all need each other to thrive. There are about 328 million Americans, as far as population goes. It's impossible for all of us to think and feel the same. There will be differences. So guess what? Inevitably, we will disagree, but that does not mean that we should destroy our reality. We need each other. Listen, I eat Taco Bell. I might go to a Jamaican restaurant. I might go to a Chinese restaurant. It's all part of the beauty of having different people. We all benefit. We all thrive. Listen, you could be a Hispanic and perhaps the person that fixes your vehicle the best might be white. Does that mean that for your political beliefs you are no longer going to go to them? That's just crazy. We need each other in order to thrive. And I've realized that people sometimes are more comfortable talking about their deep personal relationships than to talk about their political values and beliefs. So, we can't live without each other. We need everybody. We need the services. We need your values. We just can't destroy everything just because we disagree. So that's one thing that I learned. And if we can accept that we need each other, that we cannot be on an island by ourselves, let's move on. Let's take the steps to heal as a country and move on because we need each other. The second lesson I learned from all of this is that the United States Constitution is winning. Yes, the US Constitution is pretty powerful. Now, let's look at some of the things that led to the rioting. 2 people stood for elections. The population voted. One person was declared a winner. The other said, no, I don't agree. And guess what happened? Series of events. But if you think about some of the principles of the Constitution, and all you political science scholars, help me out. Separation of power, checks and balances, limited government, popular sovereignty, what else? Federalism, Republican, judicial review. All of this has been in play. So if it was left with just one candidate, they would have just decided and said, no, I am the winner, and they just taken it. if the Constitution wasn't in play. But guess what? They said, I challenge the results. I'm going to the courts for the courts to decide if really there were irregularities that should overturn the election. And what happened? The other branch said no. The elections was solid. And then this person says no. I want to put pressure on the states that I lost to do something about it. And guess what? Separation of power, federalism, all of that came into play. Which meant that if the Constitution hadn't been set the way that it was, one person could have just decided that, nah, it doesn't work for me, and done whatever it is that they wanted. And so all of this really has shown that the way the Constitution was set up has saved us all in some way. Because election happened, one person, and the election happened on the premise of one other principle of the Constitution, popular sovereignty. The people should decide. The people have the power. The people voted. And upon the vote, one person got the majority of the vote. This is just simple, plain constitutional workings here. And the other person says, no, I don't agree with it. So under normal circumstances, if the Constitution wasn't at play, guess what would have happened? Just taking the power for themselves without regard to the popular votes. But here we see a strong constitutional principle at play. Separation of power, checks and balances, federalism, independent states, but all tied together with the national government. The national government cannot pressure the states into doing something that is unconstitutional. So all of this has really played out in ways that we just see how strong the Constitution, the foundations and the principles of the Constitution has been, especially for this election. The third point is that race is still an issue in America. Despite how strong the Constitution is, one of the foundational principles, freedom and equality for all, we are still far away from that. And we saw that play out in 2020, in the wake of the George Floyd situation, how the protesters were treated versus the things that happened in DC, right? I mean, I'm sure most of you have seen images and pictures and videos of how the protesters in the wake of the George Floyd situation, and how, the pro-Trump protesting that happened, how the police responded. Two different scenarios, two different Americans, if you have to put it that way. So what does that tell you? Yes, race is still an issue. Just picture this, and I'm sure you've heard a bunch of this. If it was a whole bunch of black people who have done that, what would the general reaction have been? Lawlessness, chaos, just different. It would have been different. Let's just agree on this one. It would have been different. But why? Why are one group often seen as a threat versus another group with either the exact same thing, just left alone? So that's another thing. Race is still an issue. The color of one person's skin is still matters in decisions and things that affect them. It shouldn't be, but it is. All right, so there you have it. The 3 lessons that I've reflected on in the wake of the riots in DC. First is that we can't live without each other. We need each other in this country, especially now. We all depend on each other. We are all interconnected. After the rioting and after all the chaos in the election, we still come back to the same community. And in our community, we have our barbers, we have our grocery stores, we have our churches, we have our schools, our hospitals. We all depend on each other. We do. We can't do without each other. We are all connected. That is what makes the United States of America. Another lesson was that the Constitution has been powerful and strong. It has definitely been tested, especially this year and last year. But as you've seen, the principles of the Founding Father in having checks and balances and separation of power and judicial review and the federalism and the republicanism, limited government, has all played out in front of all of us. Because If all those principles weren't in place, all it would have taken for one person was to say, nope, I don't agree with the results, and so forget about all the millions of people that voted for the other person. I'm just going to take it. Now let's keep this also in perspective. If you're a teacher, if you're a doctor, if you are whatever profession that you are in, can you honestly say that every time you discharge your duties, you are 100% accurate? There are no irregularity in your work? You can't. So, in elections, yes, there will be some irregularity, but it doesn't negate everything else. If every time you make a mistake grading a student paper, if you are a teacher, does that mean that all the other 20 or 30, 50, however many students that you have, does that mean that just because you got a question or one or two questions wrong, that everything that you graded was inaccurate, that it should be? No, it doesn't happen like that. And even if that happened, and you have a recourse to challenge it, and the independent organization says, give a decision, we should respect that. But in this case, we've seen things just unfold, and we've seen the Constitution at every single stage, just showing how strong it is. The last thing was that race is still an issue. Race is still an issue. It shouldn't be, but it is. And that's the reality. So for that, we all have work to do. The riots are over. A new president will be sworn in. We've had so many lessons from 2020. I mean, for years since Colin Kaepernick took a knee, and we've just seen this play out in so many different ways. And now we all have to do our part to ensure there is peace and that the prosperity in the United States, as we all know it, can continue. Thank you for watching my channel. Happy New Year. If you like my content, I will encourage you. I will appreciate it if you subscribe so that I can keep bringing you content like this. Thank you.